Right, good evening everybody. Hello and welcome to the first live stream of the week. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight, and I hope you'll find the conversation interesting and worth staying with. Chris Davis, take note. Now then, as we start, don't forget to share and like if you're watching this on Facebook, share and subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube. The social media links are down below. Have a look. You can see all that stuff there. Where else we can be found? Thumbs up, really important. The algorithms like the thumbs up. I don't like the thumbs down, so you make your choice either which way. And finally, if you want to support independent-minded thought, please go to altnewsmedia.net/donate and drop a few pounds in the hat there if you want. Down to you. But it's a good way to spend your money, isn't it? Supporting something that's actually encourages different opinions and free speech. So that's pretty much it from me. My goodness, can I first of all say, before I bring on our special guest for tonight, I see we've got an aloha from Hawaii. Just found your channel. Thank you very much, Donnie girl. I've been to your lovely islands. About 10 years ago, I think it was, not less. And yeah, great place. In fact, actually, on the subject of Hawaii, let me introduce, without any further ado, she's sitting patiently. Our special guest, as always, it's Rebecca Butler. Hi, Rebecca. Good evening.
Aloha. Hi, Chris. Don't go to Hearts of Oak. Just stick with us.
Yeah. Also, can I say, it's a little bit too late to say Mele Kalikimaka. To my Hawaiian friend, but Mele Kalikimaka, I think it's Happy Christmas, and because I was there actually, Rebecca, for Christmas, New Year back in the day. So fond memories of beautiful islands, but
Yeah.
a very long way away. Very.
When I lived in America, so when my son was a month old, we moved to America, and we lived in Michigan, which was freezing cold. There was 6 feet of snow waiting for us when we got there. But about halfway through the year, my husband had a conference, an anesthetic conference, and it was in Hawaii. And we were put up in Kauai in one of the really nice hotels there. It's one of the best holidays I've ever had. But we were in Michigan, and we stopped over and did San Francisco, LA, everything in between by car with 2 very little children. It was brilliant. I loved Hawaii, loved it.
Yeah, I think people often forget, Rebecca. It's easy to forget here, living in the UK, the sheer scale of America. You know, it's so vast in so many different places. I mean, I know you're a keen golfer, Rebecca, and a very, very keen golfer. I'm not, but the only place I've played golf and really enjoyed it was on the island of Kauai. I think it's not the main island, but a superb golf course. And I always remember to this day, I had a little cart. You know, my son and myself were playing. Came around together, and the golf cart had like GPS in it. It was just, and this was like going, as I said, about a decade or so ago. I was so impressed. I've never forgotten that. It was a championship golf course, which I'm sure I ruined by even going around it. But great fun. Anyway, that's enough travel.
We'll golf later.
But anyway, look. So Rebecca, as always, in the space of a week, so much happens, and there's so much has gone on here, even in the last few hours, actually, following Matt Hancock's press conference. So folks, we've got a couple of topics we want to talk you through tonight. So initially, I want to talk through basically what looks to be the fact that, I paraphrased this in the run up to the program. It's Cliff Richard is going, we're all going on a summer holiday, reversed. We're not all going on a summer holiday. We're going to talk about, is it Fortress Britain? Is it Prison Britain? I don't know. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about Joe Biden, who's been very active, Rebecca, across the pond. He's got more executive orders coming out than McDonald's have ready meals to go. And one of them, I think, is particularly, I think, caught your eye, namely the whole issue of trans men in women's sport, or whatever it is. I don't. We'll come to that one. Okay, so those are the two main topics. I hope you folks, hope you enjoy this one. We're sticking with, of course. Now, to start with, Rebecca, I wanted to just bring up this this particular intro here, if I may, and it is, yeah, there we go. We're not going on a summer holiday. We're definitely not. And in fact, we mightn't be going on any other holidays, right? Move this, right. So the thing is that it appears to be that the UK is moving to the position where travel into the UK, Rebecca, is going to require, I think it's a 10-day statutory sort of isolation in a hotel, which you pay for yourself, which I can't see that really being attractive to foreign tourists coming here. Particularly, can't see that. I can't see that encouraging British tourists wanting to go abroad coming back, because that kind of screws everything up. So, I mean, I see this as a curious strategy, put it like that. Given that just a week ago, the British media, which is possibly one of the most deplorable in the world, in my view, even worse than the French, Rebecca, and that's bad. The British media, maybe not. The British media were crowing about the fact that it's going to be the Great British Summer. The Great British Summer. All the Brits are going to stay at home. They're going to go out. They're going to go down and get their fish and chips and, have a promenade along the front. Lovely. I don't think it's going to be like that at all. My view is that I really don't even understand where it goes. We've got an economy that's tanking for sure. We've got a Brexit Britain, Rebecca, which I know you support and I support. Many folks on the stream, I'm sure, do support. Brexit Britain is about an outward-looking Britain. How do we become an outward-looking Britain when we pull up the drawbridge and basically say, everyone else, stay out? I don't think that's helpful. Over to you.
Well, if there was a time to do this, it was when we had case number 1 back in January, the chap that came from Brighton, who came back from Ischgl in Austria. So I think he was case number 1 reported. Obviously, we know there's so much asymptomatic spread. You can assume that there were 7 other people asymptomatically spreading it as well, based on what we now know. And I have to say that, you can remember Trump getting international sort of bashing for stopping all flights from Wuhan. And my goodness, how that policy turned out to be the sensible one. We did see Australia and New Zealand over their winter, which was our summer. We did see them imposing extremely draconian lockdowns, but they also adopted this island mentality, which was all the borders were shut. And many of your viewers will know that about 37,000 Australians are currently stranded outside of Australia. So they can't even get back into their own country. So, I do feel that on the one hand, this is possibly a case of shutting the door after the horse has bolted. But there's another more sinister aspect of this that really, really does concern me. Mm. And that is, we're not the only country doing it. So a lot of Southeast Asia are doing this now. Australia is still doing it, and yet they do have a background number of cases still, coming in, or still recording every day. New Zealand has now had another outbreak of cases. So it does really concern me that this virus is doing something that we've not actually been told about recently. And every time I turn on the news, I am actually dreading the big reveal on this, because if you think, I had an outbreak of weevils, right, in my flour, because I do leave it for months on end. So the only way I got rid of the weevils was to throw all the flour away, not buy any more, Google what the life cycle of a weevil is, make sure I denied them of all food,
Yeah.
and then didn't put any flour in my drawers for a very long time, and then the weevils went away. Well, that's how lockdowns work. And that is a zero COVID strategy, is that you remove the reservoir for so long that the virus goes through its life cycle.
Yeah,
How
but
the virus got back into New Zealand, it just doesn't make any sense. And it does really, really make me worry about variants, about asymptomatic spread, and so on and so forth. And I think there is something we're not being told. And I think it might be, my worry is it's quite frightening news when it comes out.
yeah, actually, one question I have for you, Rebecca, is we've heard a lot in recent days about, you know, the Kent virus, you know, the Kent variant. We've heard a lot about the, for example, the Brazilian variant. We've heard what's the other one? It's gone in my head actually. What's the other?
South Africa.
Yeah, South African, the Brazilian, the Kent. Isn't it strange that all these variants are named after the place where they came from, but the original variant, the Wuhan variant, isn't? It's strange, that, isn't it? I wonder where that might be. I mean, I have no idea. What about you?
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is the hypocrisy, though, of everything to do with politics should make you vomit. Honestly, it really, really does make me sick. And Matt Hancock was today at great pains to make it clear in the press conference that it's the UK identified variant, not the Kent version. Yeah, because it's not Wuhan flu, is it? But it's also not Ebola, because like Ebola's from the Ebola River, but
That's
it's
right.
not Ebola virus, is it?
No, it's
So
not.
it's utterly ridiculous. And it's everything to do with who sits at the head of the WHO.
Correct.
I'm sorry, how did his pockets get filled? That's just political buggeration. And it does make me angry. But the thing with what we're talking about now is if you are Jacinta Ardern and believe in tyranny and a zero COVID strategy, which kind of Nicola Sturgeon does as well, because it's popular, don't forget, with their voter base, then shutting all your boundaries is the way to go. Definitely the way to go, because it's my weevil story. And actually, if I'm right, in theory, if you shut everything down, a bit like the Vicar of Eyam found in the Black Death, that village in Nottingham, where he worked out that there was a reservoir of bubonic plague. So if he shut all of the boundaries to the village of Eyam, they would be safe. And indeed they were. They had no deaths at all. So this is germ theory. But in order for it to work, you've got to be able to do a 100% policy, not half measures.
Did you see? I want to come back to the UK in a second, but just talk about New Zealand for a moment. Two things I just wanted to ask you. I saw a video clip actually earlier today in New Zealand of a rock concert or a pop concert somewhere, and it was like thousands of young people, you know, cheek by jowl, usual concert stuff. I found that, you know, well, curious. And the other thing I found curious was, as you said, Rebecca, New Zealand and the tyrannical prime minister they have down there had gotten the levels had dropped right down. Yeah, but then they do drop in the summer anyway. But they drop right down. But they've still got this kind of, you know, if you come in, you have to self-isolate in a hotel. That thing going, and apparently, what's caused a panic there is, or so the media says, is that a new instance of it has emerged, and the person got it in the hotel.
Well,
or so they're saying. So they're saying,
yeah.
So, you know, that's only evidence I can go on.
Yeah, not saying. Well, who knows? Did she get it from the hotel, or is this a variant that has an even longer incubation period? Because she had tested negative on arrival, which is the law. Then she did her 10 days, I think, maybe,
Yeah.
or 2 weeks. And then at the end of 2 weeks, she was positive. But then very, very quickly, 75 cases emerged just out of that one case. So it is very worrying, and it kind of demonstrates that there is no 100%, and germ theory relies on 100%. So it is a concern. Now, I mean, I know that your perspective on coronavirus is very different to mine, because your perspective is really very economics based, and that's really kind of from your background. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, just like you can't shut Singapore down, it's easy to shut Australia and New Zealand down. I mean, Australia has 10 million flight visitors, flight sort of activity per annum, as opposed to 45 million in the UK. I mean, the scale is so different that I can't see how it benefits your side of the sort of the lockdown argument. Your economic side of the lockdown argument isn't made. But in this case, actually, my side of the argument isn't made either, because I'm saying, well, germ theory relies on the 100% if you're going to adopt that strategy. So I don't think mine's going to work either.
Well, let me give you, I mean, actually, Rebecca, you must be able to read my mind by this point, because I was going to move into an economics-based aspect of things. As you know, it was my birthday quite recently, and I went away to a little place at the coast and spent a really nice little short break up that location. And what I did was I visited a couple of the local coastal towns, you know, which would be main tourist resorts by Northern Ireland standards, and would be very popular, I guess, even in the wintry months. Anyway, went along. One of them, I did take a photograph. I'll not share it, but the promenade was deserted. There was like nobody there, and the reason there was nobody there was because all the shops were closed. I went to the other one, and it was a little better, but again, you know, fundamentally deserted. Now, the thing is that even if this strategy of making it Fortress Britain or Prison Britain goes ahead, which I think it will, and you don't open up the economy, then, you know, okay, I am approaching from that perspective, Rebecca. Like, those little businesses are screwed. They are gone. I've never walked along that promenade, and it was almost like echoes of my footsteps. I found that deeply disturbing. Now, you might say, well, okay, but that's just January, and so we're moving on into the spring and whatnot. But that's really not what the government's signaling, is it?
No, you know, it's funny that you say that, because in my own little world, somebody just jokingly sent me a clip of an Aston Villa West Bromwich Albion game
Right.
about 18 months ago. And it's because obviously he's a Baggies fan, I'm a Villa fan, and I put something up on Twitter, and I watched this little video, and you know, it brought tears to my eyes, because I thought, oh my God, that used to be normal. And yet now I look at it in this really dystopian way, where I think, was that normal, or is now normal? You know, and I got genuinely very upset watching it, because it just struck me really, really hard how much we have lost. Forget the money, forget the lives for the purposes of this conversation.
Yeah.
Emotionally, and all of the things that we rely on emotionally, all those social interactions with strangers, you know, you in the Holt End, you know, you're up in the football terraces,
Yeah.
you're having a tribal moment with your gang. That's all gone. And that, what an enjoyable adrenaline burst that is. And it really, really made me cry. And I said to the guy on Twitter who sent it, I said, I got really emotional watching that. And he said, yeah, me too. Are we ever going to see that again? I'm so scared that this narrative of new normal is going to just gradually ease people into this constant, now sort of a constant cat and mouse game that we've never played with influenza as a society. We just leave influenza for the experts to deal with. But with coronavirus, we're so well informed actually as a society now. Are we all going to be playing this social media cat and mouse? Ooh, what strain is it today? Does the vaccine suit it? Is it ever going to calm down in our psyche? And I really worry that it won't. So what you're talking about, I think everybody is feeling that, is like, oh my God, is this it?
Rebecca, there's two things. I'm not as big a football fan as you, but I actually did tune in yesterday, and I'm sure some people in the stream will have as well, to watch. It was Liverpool versus Manchester United in the.
You watched the Villa Newcastle match.
I watched part of it, but I only can take small amounts of football. However, I know there's other people. Chris Davis makes a point. I took a photograph of it. I was watching it on the TV, and in the empty stadium, they had got up a quote from Bill Shankly, quote, "Football is nothing without the fans." There were no fans in the stadium. And honestly, that's dystopian by any analysis. And then the second thing is to sort of go off what you said. I'm a big sort of Six Nations fan, and up until this last year, I've typically always gone, to watch England, Ireland, Italy, France, Scotland, whoever. I always loved doing that. And as you say, part of the fun of it wasn't even necessarily always the rugby. It's the companionship, human beings together, in the pub beforehand, on the way to the ground, all of that experience. And I see the Six Nations is back, but it's back without, as far as I can understand anyway, the fans. And I mean, that's not normal. I don't care what, it's going to be rebranded, the new normal, but I think it's abnormal. It's certainly missing the thing that I'm sure you enjoyed going to see Villa, and I enjoyed the Six Nations, the human, interaction.
Yeah, it's just being part of your gang, your tribe, and frankly, David, if it meant having to watch them take the bloody knee every time, I'd take that. If it meant I could go back to a football match. It's just, but it's not, I'm just using football as an example. It's everything. It's the little shop. It's when you go for a walk, you have lunch at the cake shop, or, whatever it is. It's just what we took for granted as normal has been whipped away from us, and it sort of offends the very core of us,
humanity.
It really offends against it. And I see Simon, sort of nice to see you two still talking, but Simon, David and I just come from two different perspectives on this. And by the way, if we appear short on social media, it's because we are both short on social media. We do very short posts, so we don't fall out. We really don't. We just come from two entirely different perspectives. But we're not absolutists, because David and I, quite uniquely, are able to see the other's point and to accept that the other one might have some merit to their argument. So we're not absolute when we say you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm, whatever it is, I'm wrong, you're right. So,
I think, Rebecca, as people live their lives, they do. Maybe I'm not sure of the average age of everyone on the stream, but you do learn as you get older that it's really important to listen to what other people say, and you don't have to agree in it, but you listen. In fact, actually, if people listened more. Just generally, it would be a good thing for making a better society. I think too many closed minds.
Isn't that one of the arguments against knocking Trump off Twitter? Jack Dorsey with his pathetic notions of what free speech is, because actually I think free speech is not running down rabbit holes with people who agree with you. It's not having David Vance have to be on Gab or whatever. Whatever platform, or Parler, or whatever it is. It's not about that, because it should be about listening to what other people are saying, because there is no absolute right and there's no absolute wrong. Because if there was absolute right, then my Weevil theory would work for coronavirus. If you lock everybody down and everybody locks down, you get rid of it. But it doesn't.
One of the other things, Rebecca, just briefly before, because we're coming to the end of the first section, we're going to come to your section. One of the things that also, and again, we should really do a separate stream in this one, but education. Education matters, I think, so much to young people. You know, it's crucial. And from the looks of it, and I don't know what you think, but we're being told that from Gavin Williamson, you know, real mega lightweight. Totally,
no more.
But it looks like the schools are going to be closed now too, at the earliest Easter, and I suspect it may be May. And here in Northern Ireland, term ends in June. We have a slightly different year, so it's quite likely that the kids here where I live anyway won't be back to school this year. And you know, as you get, again, the age gives you all kinds of perspectives. 6 months is a long time in a young life when their brains are trying to impart knowledge and stuff. I think this is I'm really unhappy with it. I think it's an atrocious decision, and I'm going to put up a slide just to share this slide with you. If we can just bring up the next slide. This is the government trying to suggest that, well, teachers could be vulnerable, and the teaching unions are saying teachers can be vulnerable. I saw this information. I've circled the fact that the one group that, teachers are less likely to become casualties of COVID-19 than many other professions. Obviously, anybody losing their life from coronavirus is awful, it's grim. But generally speaking, there's not I don't see an argument for the schools being kept closed, most at all, let alone to May. What do you think, Rebecca? Just a few minutes just on this one, and then we move. So,
I am 100% on the record for this. You know, keep the schools open at any cost, because I recognize that with a properly motivated teaching workforce, without the interference of their unions, that teachers genuinely do want their children to be educated, because after all, teachers are judged on their children's results. And I know with my young niece and nephew at the moment that they are receiving education, but school is not just about reading and writing. It is about learning how to learn. It's about learning how to be in a gang, in a tribe, in society. It's about all your rough edges being knocked off. It's about being on the sports pitch, which for me is a massively important part of especially secondary school. They're losing out all of their interactions with their friends. And that for me is a really big problem. The second really big problem, and for me it is in order actually, is that the least privileged in society, so the less well off, the vulnerable children do much, much worse. And so privileged children are just going to be streets ahead as a result.
Yeah, Rebecca, I actually saw a stat on that this morning. Maybe you saw it. It was suggesting that kids being educated in private education were getting something like about 5 or 6 hours a day of tuition via Zooms or Google Classroom or whatever. But kids in comprehensive whatever, they were getting a fraction of that. They were a fraction. And so if you want to raise up the people, you know, social mobility and all that, this is just killing it dead in the water, because those
that's right. Well, only 10% of children in sort of the first part of last year got any education at all. Now, I'll just tell you that 8% of the children in the country are in the private sector. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out which sector was, with mobilized parents, were saying, well, we're bloody paying for this, you can give it to us. So, and we did have, massive interference by the teachers union, telling teachers that, you know, they didn't have to do video classes if they weren't comfortable with it. I mean, what do you mean you're not comfortable with it? You know, not comfortable with what? Children see where you live? We'll put a green screen up, you know, just
Yeah.
or sit behind a sheet or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not up to you to decide whether you're comfortable enough in a national emergency, whether to do your job or not. So, I mean, why would teachers be even furloughed, right? Because they're essential workers, aren't they?
Yeah.
I would have thought so. So, yeah, but again, going back to like my side of the argument, if
Yeah.
schools go back, other things can't, because in the calculation of how
Right.
much transmission, background transmission, can we tolerate in terms of our bed capacity, then schools have to be prioritized. But that means that all the other stuff won't be. So an unspinning lockdown is going to look like schools only, I think, for a very, very long time. That'll be tier 6.
Yeah, what you reckon we'll move to schools will be open, but the economy will be closed down.
Well, the
Yeah.
economy is open this time. I mean, that is the difference, is that the actually, commerce is happening. You just tell by the number of cars on the road. She
Yeah.
said, having gone out on the road to do her walk every day, but there are a lot more cars this time, and commerce is happening.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. We've just seen the recent GDP figures for the UK. It's a disaster. That's disastrous. But you are right. And I mean, the thing about Rebecca and myself is we don't approach this necessarily from the same starting point, but we do have vast areas of I think consensus agreement. Rebecca, I'll tell you who are absolutely back at work: commerce, plumbers, electricians, general workmen, builders, people like that. I see their little vans going back and forth. They're the people, and I know there's some of them on the stream who have never really stopped, to be honest, because the government has decided to let them continue, which is good, and I'm really grateful for them. But what I think is a bit hypocritical is, like, the teacher unions today were sort of saying, right, we need to prioritize teachers for vaccines. Really? Sitting at home, you need a vaccine ahead of, for example, just as an example, someone working in a Tesco, guy filling the shelves in Tesco. Those guys, as that chart actually showed, are at the most at risk. Why the hell would teachers be prioritized over?
Well, they wouldn't.
Workers?
My big group that I now 100% with, like the militant Becky's come out, a bit like I was with the fishermen over Brexit. I'm with the lorry drivers. They have got such a raw deal. They are the guys that are keeping the distribution networks open. They are the guys making sure that materials end up on building sites so that buildings can be built, builders can be paid, and property developers can sell the property. Lorry drivers are such an essential part. Now, if you take a break and think, well, at one point this vaccine is going to be acknowledged to prevent the spread, surely lorry drivers should get it first rather than have to go through this ridiculous twice a week testing, which is more than we give an ITU nurse. So, surely lorry drivers. And if we follow the evidence, David, I think your graph that you put up would tell us that security guards need it more than anybody, because they have the highest risk of COVID at work. Look at the evidence, not at the feelings. Not interested in how you feel, love. Do your job. And if you are in a high-risk profession, like working in a supermarket, you know what? You get it first. Absolutely.
Yeah. I absolutely think they should be certainly offered it, and it's down to them if they take it or not. But yeah, the fact, as you said, facts don't care about your feelings.
No.
But teacher unions have been abysmal throughout this, and again, that's a whole nother show, basically, I think. Anyway, Rebecca,
they've let children down. I really do think they've let children down. They fail. I think teachers consistently fail to advocate for their children because they're public sector employees. It doesn't matter what the outcome is because they get paid at the end of the day. You look at how public sector employees have enjoyed since the economic collapse of 2008. They have enjoyed, albeit low, but then inflation is sometimes negative. We've had a deflationary economy for a lot of it in the 12 years since. Public sector employees have enjoyed 1 to 2% above inflation. Right. Pay rises. Look at the private sector. The private sector has lagged behind so badly. Plus, they don't have maternity rights, they don't have holiday rights, and they don't have the pension rights of public sector employees. So you know what, I'm really angry with the teachers, and it's just as well my kids aren't at school right now, because I would be the angry mummy at the door demanding education.
I do have to point out, Chris Davis has commented on the fact that we were told by government the annual gas serving has to continue. Well, Chris, you'll be pleased to know I have to get one of my boilers serviced in the next 2 weeks, and the gas engineer will be coming out. And again, to Rebecca's point, I'm sure again, Rebecca, we agree in this. If it wasn't for guys like Chris who are doing the servicing of things like boilers, as you know, again, fundamental, like the guys keeping the lights on, the guys keeping the internet going, all this stuff, you know, life would be absolutely miserable, and they get little thanks at all. And yet, you know, well, for a long time, I've been a long time a trenchant critic of parts of the public sector, not all of it, but parts of it.
Yes.
And even then, it's, you know, it is hard to generalize, even though I do it. But you should.
Sharon is carrying the flag for me. So Sharon, I find that sarcasm does work very well with teachers. They don't like it, particularly if they think you're smarter than them. So I'll back you up, Sharon. Keep an eye on me on Facebook. We'll fight the fight against the teachers. It's utterly shocking what they've done to the children.
Well. Anyway, moving on. I want to give you plenty of time for your topic. So, folks, I'm going to introduce it, Rebecca, and then over to you. Right. So, if we look at the next slide, back across the pond for a moment, folks. Uncle Joe Biden has got himself in the Oval Office, and the headline is that he's accused of erasing women, threatening girls' sports with gender identity order. I've got a couple of pics. I've got. If we can bring those up as well, this will be a test of our. There we go. Here's Joe Biden's sort of new consensus sport for females, and I think we've got one more. Here we go. Another example of someone getting a gold medal, and they tower over the person in silver and bronze. Anyway, right, Rebecca. What my view is, it's abominable. I so much respect professional people in sports, amateur, professional, male, female, people who do their best. I know you're very sporty yourself, and many years ago I played sports too. But you know, women's sport has come on so much and so good in so many ways. The way they excel and whatnot. But what does this do for women, Rebecca? You're a woman. The floor is yours.
Well, you know, my background is I was a state level sprinter, so I was a pretty handy sprinter in my day, and you know, 100s and 200s were my distances, and the very thought of me running against a boy who just decided for the purposes of doing sport that he fancied being a girl, there's no way I could have competed. You know, when you go in on a level playing field, pardon the Brexit reference, but when you go on a level playing field, you accept as a good sports person that you're not going to win everything.
No.
But you know the numbers and you know the lineup. And, you know, you look at the conditions, you look at the track, you look at the you know, who your competition is, and you work out before a race, you know, as you're on the starting blocks, what your relative chances are of top three, which is all you ever really aim for, is to be in the medal positions. So particularly, you know, when you get established at state level. But, you know, if I had known that every single time I was running, I stood absolutely no chance of being in the top three, why would I do that? Why would I get up at 6 o'clock every morning when everybody else was in bed? Why would I go for those runs? Why would I put myself through all of that really, really hard training? And of course, you know, a lot of your viewers will recognize that I'm not a spring chicken. And so it was quite arduous in our day. It was basically physical fitness. There was no psychology or nutrition or anything like that. No. You know, you used to wear pumps. There weren't even trainers. Well, I used to wear spikes, but you know, and it was all pretty much grassroots stuff. There's no way I'd have got out of bed. let alone pay the money for the kit or the entry fees and all of that stuff. So, it's the grassroots that this affects. It doesn't affect anything really beyond college level sports in America. And I'm so disappointed by this. I can't tell you how thoroughly unnecessary this was as a president in their first 100 days. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry if there are any transgender people on the stream. I'm going to apologize up front, and I'm only going to apologize once. This is a non-issue, all right? The number of people who claim that they are transgender in the UK, the number of people who assert that they are identifying as the opposite sex, so they are transgender, is 400,000 people out of a population of, call it 65 million.
Yeah.
That's not very many at all. Now, when you look at, and I'm doing this from a legal point of view, Gender Recognition Act.
Yeah.
How many gender recognition certificates have been applied for and granted out of 400,000? Go on, David. I know you don't know the answer. Top of your head, how many do you think have been applied for?
I'd say about 10%.
What, 4,000?
Yeah, you do the maths. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. No, you're 75% out.
Really?
Yeah. 15 to 1,700 have been granted in 10 years. So that means, I'm sorry if I offend, there are a lot of transvestites in society because they don't actually want to transition. They just want to identify as.
Well, that's a very profound point. That's a very, very interesting point. And as you say, that's looking at it from a legal perspective. We always have to remember, Rebecca, that we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and they can get very sensitive about these things. But unfortunately, facts matter, and those are facts, and that's it.
That's facts. Now, nobody would say ever, and I'm sure you've never said, I've never said it, that trans people have rights. Of course they have rights. They're human beings. Of course they have rights. And of course, actually, I give them protected rights as well. I have no problem with that. But if you are a boy and you want to be a girl, or if you are male and wish to be female at the age of 18, do it. Don't talk about it. You've got the Tavistock Clinic. It's free. It's on the NHS. Now you can apply for your gender recognition certificate for free. It would only cost 45 quid anyway. Do it. Get it. Have the treatment for free. I don't care. I don't want sad people on account of their gender. I just don't want that. I understand their struggles, but do it, okay? We created the law to facilitate you telling us this massive demand existed, but in fact it doesn't. They don't want to transition. So now I go back to the sports question. I'm going to assume that I couldn't get the numbers. As you know, I do tend to do my research. I couldn't get the numbers for the States. But if we assume demographically that America is the same as Britain, and I can see why no reason why it wouldn't be.
Any different? No.
So as a percentage of the population, we are now talking about boys who couldn't get a gender recognition certificate because they're school age, okay? So they're under 18. They can't even put themselves forward. They are going to adversely affect grassroots sports for girls. Now, one of the problems we have in society is that 33% of our population is obese. And I mean BMI greater than 30, so a clinical obese diagnosis. We now know how dangerous obesity is just in respect of one pathogen, never mind the risks of cancer, heart failure, and all that sort of thing as well. So the health problem, in my opinion, relates directly to the attitude to sport and physical activity at school.
When your kids are young.
Girls 80% of all obese people in Britain are girls. So if you start de-incentivizing girls to go out and perform, why would I get out of bed if I'm never, ever going to win a race? Why would I do it?
Well, yeah, there's also the danger element. So, I mean, obviously athletics is one thing, but suppose you're playing, let's take an example, women's football, for example. Women's football, and all of a sudden, they're confronted with a 6'6" hulking brute coming at them. That's going to be a bit tricky. Hockey, women's hockey, again, something that my kids, my daughter played, and for many years when she was younger. Like I can see these sports, and this is at just totally amateur level, not never mind going near the professional level. These games could become dangerous if this is facilitated. And the only problem is, I'm not sure. Well, Biden's made sure it's going to happen in the US. I mean, it's very disturbing. But could it happen? I'm sure it could happen here as well.
Well, I have to get past me, because I'll tell you what, if they thought I was a bad activist on Brexit, just wait and see if you affect grassroots sport. I'll be shouting at Twitter every day if they do. Honestly, I will go and confront Boris Johnson myself. I can't see him doing it, because even Keir Starmer recognized that that this was not an issue that had any traction with the British electorate, when Lisa Nandy and Rebecca Long Bailey both said they'd allow men to self-identify. I think because Keir Starmer is significantly smarter than your average Labour politician. He recognised that this has no traction at the ballot box in the UK. And to be honest, I don't think it would have had traction at the ballot box in America if there hadn't been so many other factors. But, when it comes to IAAF and IOC, so the world governing bodies, then they actually do have rules on testosterone levels. And that can create hardship for some XX female athletes who have high levels of testosterone, and we know there have been those in history. But I'm afraid the simple answer will be is you just can't compete at the professional or the world stage as a woman if your testosterone is above a certain threshold. That's fine, but we're not going to get girls even to that level. We're not going to get them to state level or in the UK county level if they aren't able to compete here, in school sports events. I mean, it just makes a mockery of it. Is
it fair? Would it be fair to say then that if trans people want to compete, then let them compete specifically against other trans people?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Of course.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean, that then, to go back to the Brexit analogy, that's a level playing field, isn't it? It's like
it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
I mean, there is already a lot of disparity in juvenile sports, because you probably remember, with your son, that you can turn up at a rugby match with your sort of 10-year-old, and you think the opposition are Neanderthals, that they've been on doping regimes, are always bigger. But, when kids are young, they're all sorts of shapes and sizes. But by the time they get to 16, they kind of average out a little bit. By 18, they certainly do. When they're competing at seniors, they all look the same. But, if I'd had to run against a boy, there's no way I could compete against a boy. But even in golf, if I got around a golf with a 18 handicap male golfer, so if I play on a level par with a male golfer, even with my distance advantage, which I get in the amateur game, even with my distance advantage of a few meters on the tee box, I still can't compete with a male. I still can't. I haven't got the musculature. I'm using different clubs. Whereas if I'm competing against a woman, they'll get their 3-wood out. I'll get my 3-wood out. 7-iron, 7-iron. You know, pitching wedge, pitching wedge. But it would
Yeah,
be my 3-wood against a pitching wedge if I was playing against a man. So you can't. This is not equality. This is
no,
not equality. This is suppressing women. I mean, you know, I'm not even talking about the safe spaces and all, having them in prison. This is suppressing ambition for women, and
yeah, yeah,
it has such a stifling effect on what are women's rights, women's equality. I don't think
I
anybody
agree.
on the stream would
Hmm.
say that equality is one thing, but and we're all okay as long as everybody has the same starting position. It doesn't mean equality of outcome, but
No.
this isn't equality of starting position.
No, it's a but it's also denying. It is fundamentally denying the fact that men and women are physically different.
Yes.
As you say, Rebecca, rightly, you know, our muscle structures are different. Things like upper body strength and whatnot, they're not the same between the genders. And you know, we have to recognize that. Trying to deny that, which essentially Biden and the woke people around him are trying to do, that, you know, that it's really, it's folly as far as I can see, but with bad consequences. It will have the exact opposite consequence than that which they say, because as you said, it'll put girls off going into going into sport, getting fit, staying healthy. Those things are crucial, but this will, I think, put them off.
But is this a priority for a president who's
No.
taken over after what they are alleging is an insurrection? I'd love to just have 5 minutes on that, by the way. You know, after all this crisis and all the supposed problems of the Trump years and the coronavirus, you know, Trump has personally killed 400,000 people. You know, is this really a priority for your first 100 days when there are so many other things that need dealing with? Or is he hoping that he doesn't get called out on his identity politics because really he's a
Yeah.
bit old fart and he doesn't really believe in identity politics anyway, and he doesn't want to save it for 2 years down the line. He wants to be able to get the voters forgetting this now, because there'll be other stuff down the line when Kamala wants her second term. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I just think, well, is this really a priority? And the answer to it is no. But the balance of whether it was proportionate to do this, absolutely not. I'm furious. I'm so furious. It's just wrong.
I saw. I'm going to bring up, Rebecca. I saw a meme that made me laugh, and I think it's pretty opposite. If we can have the, um, if you see it, folks, here, motorcyclist who identifies as bicyclist sets cycling world record, and there he is in his Kawasaki 250 or whatever. And yeah, if we could, so you know, the thing is, we all want to try and live in the real world. And denying reality is just no way to do it. And unfortunately, the left in general don't like to accept things that are obvious. Men and women are different. Thank God for that.
They
We
are.
should
They are.
celebrate the difference, shouldn't we? Not try to pretend that doesn't really matter. And they're for men, you know, trans men or trans women or whoever they are. You know, if they want to compete with each other, fine. And we should respect. I'm fully for respecting them, by the way. Facebook, YouTube, fully respect, and I am actually. But I just think that the point you're making, Rebecca, it's a very important point. From you know, from a female perspective, half the planet is, you know, your point is totally relevant to. But
But
yeah,
you know,
it's
it happened. It's happened to me, and just explain briefly that I was at quite a high level yacht racer, and I competed for Team GB in the Commodore's Cup a few years ago. So very, very actively involved in yacht racing. And the one design of boat that I raced in was an Olympic class, and it was an old Olympic class, but there were a huge number of boats competing in Cowes, which is near me. Now,
yeah,
I had a classic yacht, which was very old. It was sort of 50-year-old wooden boat. But we used to start with the plastic boats. And in fact, actually, you know, the better sailors amongst us, we used to beat the plastic boats. But the class suddenly attracted a lot of Olympic sailors, a lot of high-level sailors, and
Yeah.
it suddenly attracted a huge amount of money. Now, I'm not really sure why. There was kind of a poshness associated with this particular boat. It's called a dragon, if anybody wants to look up. It's an international dragon. It's a very, very beautiful racing yacht, only 3 people, and Cowes had the biggest fleet. But when the moneyed people came into it, because the reputation was so good because of the standard of racing.
Yeah.
Now, for 3 years, I won the classic trophy, you know, and I was consistently beating over the line, over the race course, newer, lighter boats, because it's a tactical game.
Yeah.
But then the governing body of yacht racing brought in a rule that said 30% of your crew could be like band 1 professionals. So 30% of 10, you're not going to get 3 professionals on a boat of a crew of 10. You're going to get 1.
Yeah.
On a crew of 3, you're going to get your 30% because it's 1. And so we were suddenly completely snuffed out as an amateur, have a good laugh, every weekend go out yacht racing and then get drunk in the bar afterwards. It completely changed the dynamic when we allowed professionals in, because then the money followed the professionals. And, you know, like I'd be out there begging people to come out sailing with me, like everybody was. These guys were being paid, you know, £1,000 per race. And, you know, for Cows Week, they'd be getting like £7,000 to come and appear. Well, you know, on the Cows Week start line, in the last year I competed, I said to my crew, what is the freaking point? I'm never going to get in the top 3. And, you know, immediately off the start, you've got professionals on board. Of course, they're going to sail better than me. It's all they ever do. So
Yeah.
consequently, we had 30 boats starting 15 years ago. Now, you're lucky if you get 5. The sport has died because it's imposing this disproportionate advantage in sport. It always destroys it. It's doping in cycling. It's putting professionals on boats in amateur events, in yacht racing. It's putting boys with male musculature running against girls. It actually has a stifling effect. And although they all thought that it was done with the right reasons, so that by professionalizing the sport, it would improve it, it had the opposite effect. So I can say from personal experience that I ended up selling my boat. You know, having won the trophy, I sold my boat. I just gave up. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore because I stand absolutely no chance. And that's the perspective I'm from. With sport, is that why would you get out of bed if you don't stand a chance? Because when you do, you do.
But before we finish, I see a question. I'm going to bring it up and get your quick response to it. Labour's Lisa and Andy was on, I believe, TV yesterday, calling for a change to the army to make it a gender-balanced security force. Rebecca, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, she's the shadow foreign secretary. That's how worrying it is. So I think somebody I think it might have been Guido Fawkes, did a cartoon of a soldier in a rainbow camouflage kit in response to that story. Utterly, utterly stupid and ridiculous. Sorry. Shut up, Lisa Nandy. You're irrelevant.
She absolutely is. But it is, as you say, you know, shadow foreign secretary thinks a gender balanced security. The problem is this wokeness agenda. It to me, it's like corrosive. You know, it's like acid. It starts perhaps innocently enough, but it does corrode and it destroys, and that's the reality of it. You know, and I suppose, and the only thing that, as I said again, controversially, the only thing worse than the Conservative Party is the Labour Party. The
only thing worse than Trump was Biden.
Yeah, but look who's in. But anyway, we can't talk about that because that was a fully legitimate and fair win. And hello, YouTube, Facebook. I'm completely behind.
Can I just be forgiven just for 30 seconds to make a point about Biden and this impeachment drama? Ridiculous. Does the US need it?
Yeah.
Another thing, I've been watching quite a few documentaries on what actually happened in the run up to that. And, Trump didn't say anything. He didn't incite anybody. Okay, admittedly, after it happened, he didn't exactly say specifically, kindly go home. But that might have been because he actually didn't know what they were doing. I don't know. But the one who did actually say, this means combat, did you know that was said at that rally?
No.
Yeah, Keep America Great rally, which was on the 6th of January, whenever the insurrection was.
Yeah.
This means combat. Rudy Giuliani said that.
Yeah.
So if anybody is guilty of incitement, it is Rudy Giuliani for saying that. It's definitely not Trump. It is Giuliani. And he's also in a lot of trouble because he's being sued by the Dominion people as well.
I saw, I mean, to be honest, the thing about Rudy is I still can't get out of my mind. Remember the press conference he did where where, I mean, I mightn't have hair but I mean, the sight of the hair, the dye running from his hair, and he's a guy, he's in his 70s, isn't he? Late 70s, whatever. I still can't get past that. But also, if you wanted to impeach presidents, I mean, there's lots of them. We could start with Bill Clinton, a sexual predator. We could do so much of that. Does it do anything? Of course it doesn't, but disappointingly, I think there's about 19 of the new rhinos elected to the House who were supporting the idea of impeaching the president. And
I know, but you see, but they're going to struggle to get the 17 that they need to take it through the Senate. And
they will in the Senate. Yeah.
And so the Senate actually does hear evidence, unlike the House of Representatives. So he is impeached already by the House of Representatives. The Senate has to confirm or deny, and they're going to struggle to get the 17, the 2/3 majority, because of course the Democrats didn't get the runaway majorities that they reassuringly told us they were going to in this election. So they are struggling in the Senate. They're not going to prove it. But Rudy Giuliani, I think, will be disbarred for that statement. And I think if anybody faces a federal prosecution for incitement, for me, and I'd encourage people to find it, look it up. It is an absolutely outrageous comment. What he's bonkers. I think he's completely lost the plot. And
I think Rebecca, obviously coming from your legal background, and indeed anyone coming from a legal background should understand words, and words have significance and have to be used carefully. And the more influential you are, and Rudy Giuliani is a very influential, or pretty influential person on the American stage, it is important to choose your words, especially as they become hostages to fortune, which I'm sure he did not mean it in that sense, but those are words. But anyways, he's not the guy being impeached. It's Trump who's relaxing. He's relaxing down in his Florida home and planning apparently the creation of the Patriot Party. So we'll see what comes of that one.
It's huge already. It's absolutely enormous, the Patriot Party. I mean, this is going to be bigger than the Boston Tea Party. This is going to be a really big issue. And what's going to happen to the Republican Party? They've really only got 2 years to sort their act out. Now, a lot of them were on Trump's coattails. Sorry, I know this wasn't about Trump, but this is so exciting what's happening in America. And Biden, God, you've gone down the identity politics route. Bernie Sanders is chairing up the Congress Spending Committee. He's at the head of that.
Bernie.
Yeah. He's just been announced today. So be afraid. You're going to have a big deficit very soon. Really, really interesting. And
I think, Rebecca, interesting as British politics are, and that's why I've got the two flags behind me. I'm fascinated by American politics, not least because they affect us, they affect the world, and just also because they're just interesting in their own regard, And I think, again, we don't want to go on more than another minute or two, but I think Biden's in the first few days in office, he's implemented 17 executive orders, which is the most ever of any incoming US president. He's a 78-year-old guy with cognitive decline. You got to wonder, Rebecca, who's putting the orders in front of him? Oh, by the way, did you see him signing his first one or two? Did you see that? And it was caught in video. He said, "Well, what Kamala had to say, just sign it." And he said, "What am I signing?" I mean, come on,
blank piece of paper. I mean, honestly.
Oh, God, I know it. But anyway, whatever happens in the States, folks, we'll be here to keep an eye on it. And we've gone past our allotted time, Rebecca. So I'm going to bring events to an end. But listen, big thank you to you for coming along tonight. And as you can see, folks, there's remarkable harmony levels between Rebecca and myself. As I think, again, I know it's another show. Social media brings out the worst in people. Honest conversation brings out the best in people, and that's why one of the reasons I like to do this. Anyone can knock out a sharp tweet or a Facebook post or whatever. Does it achieve much? Probably not. Does honest conversation? Yeah, I think it probably does. So look, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. I see all the nice comments on the stream. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Thanks for all the thumbs up. Remember, the algorithms like the thumbs up. So I want you to give yourself a digital workout. Go on. Get your BMI down. Work yourself out. And in the meantime, with that, I shall return. I'm not sure when, but I shall return. Famous words. And I'll catch up with you folks soon. But in the meantime, thanks again to Rebecca. Thanks to you, and catch you soon. That's it from us for tonight. Good night.
Bye, all.